about 2 weeks after starting working with the functional doctor, he let me know. We did a bunch of tests. One, that I had developed what's called dysautonomia. POTS is a common one that a lot of people know about. So dysautonomia is the inability for your nervous system to essentially maintain itself. Your heart rate, your digestion, your blood pressure, your body temperature. My body wasn't able to do that. And in fact, if we took 2 different pulse oxes and put them on different fingers, they read differently because my hands were getting different messages.
Hi everyone, and welcome to an episode of Carpe Diem Living. I am your host, Shane Gitmed, and today we have an awesome mom here. Her name is Rayna, and she's going to tell us about her journey with her own holistic journey and how she healed. So Rayna, introduce yourself and tell us more about you and your journey.
All right. Hi everyone. I'm Rayna. I'm coming from Denver, Colorado today. And I've had a very interesting, long journey with my health that is now unfolded to a very beautiful place. Let's put it that way. So do you like me to just start at the beginning?
Yeah, go for it. Walk us through.
So I've always been super healthy and exercising, eating healthy, things like that. When in 2007, I was actually going to school to be a nutritionist. And I was doing really well, but I developed a really bad anxiety to the point that I literally couldn't leave the house. Prior to that, I had been rock climbing, hiking, traveling. It was amazing. And it got really, really bad. We really didn't know what was going on with it. Saw a psychologist, took medication, nothing would help it. I started doing paleo, or like eating paleo, and actually doing CrossFit. And I started feeling better. I didn't know at the time what that was, but it wasn't completely better. I moved to Colorado from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it got worse. I found out that my thyroid was underactive when I was 25 and that I was pre-diabetic, even though I was eating super healthy and exercising all the time. I was tired, I was cold, I was cranky, and it just kept getting worse and worse. So I eventually moved to Denver with my ex-husband, and we just kept looking for options. I was going from doctor to doctor. At this point, I was still climbing, I was still getting out, still exercising, very careful about what I was eating, but I noticed that I was always getting really sick. I was always getting nauseated, and I didn't know why. I had a doctor run tons of tests, hormone panels, everything. Nothing. You're healthy. You look healthy. It must be in your head. And then I went through a really stressful period where my ex-husband fell off a mountain. He almost died. It was 3 days before I started my internship, which was in exercise physiology. At that time, I was also running a full-time wedding photography business. And we had just bought a house. And he had no insurance. So it was this huge stress bomb, like humongous. So I was working full-time. I was going to an internship. I was running my own business. I was taking care of somebody with a broken neck, a broken back, broken ribs, like everything. And it was really hard. And as soon as he got back on his feet, I developed an anaphylactic reaction to cold air. And I live in Denver, Colorado. I couldn't eat anything that was below my body temperature. My throat would swell up. I couldn't go outside in the air when it was below 60 degrees. So I start going to doctors again. What's going on? It's all in your head. Like, it's not in my head. Like, you put an ice cube on my arm and I get a rash. Right. Like, my throat literally swells closed. So it's a problem.
Wow.
So I finally had a doctor send me to National Jewish, who refused to test me for anything. National Jewish is like this big allergy center here in Denver.
I know about that.
Everybody knows who they are, right? No, they told me it was all in my head. So I finally found a doctor. It was a Western medicine doctor who dabbled in functional medicine, who started running tests. And we figured out through elimination diets and things like that, and by the way, this is after, like, I went through all of that. This is 2014. So I've now been sick for 7 years roughly. And he starts running tests and he's like, you have candida overgrowth, you have a bacterial overgrowth. And we start addressing that. And I start getting better. And we figure out that I'm reacting to corn, which is in everything. And
Right.
it limits my water source and my food sources, my vegetable sources, my meat sources. So now I'm even more careful. And through this process, I developed a major histamine intolerance. So I just keep losing foods, and it's very depressing. But through that process, my anxiety went away, which was amazing,
Right.
right? But I'm still sick all the time, and I'm so limited in what I can do. I felt like I was a prisoner in my own body. Like I had to, everything I had to do. Like if I was going camping or climbing that weekend, like what temperature is it going to be? Where am I going to get water? How am I going to eat? Like, is my food going to get too cold? Am I going to have to wear a scarf over my mouth, like to go outside? Traveling. So I was so limited. And eventually I got to a point where I wasn't having any symptoms, but I was controlling everything. And that same doctor, he ran a bunch of tests and he was like, so you're healed. And I'm like, I'm not healed, I'm controlling everything. And
Right.
he's like, but you are. All the numbers are good. And I'm like, oh no, this is awful. But I was really proud of myself that I'd come that far. And I actually went out and I hadn't had anything scented in my house because I had like pulled out every cleaner, everything, right? And so I was like, I'm going to buy some essential oils. I'm going to like celebrate a little. I'm going to see how this goes. And I had recently gotten a puppy, and his name's Stitch, and he is a disaster. I mean, true disaster. He rips cabinet doors off of cabinets to get to things, ones that are child locked. Like, he's amazing. I love him, but he's not the type of dog I recommend adopting. And he was going around crazy, and I dumped some lavender oil into a diffuser, and I went to put water in and got distracted, and I didn't. And I diffused my entire house with straight lavender essential oil. This is a really bad idea. It's a nervous system depressant. And
Oh.
I got really nauseated and got a headache before I realized what was going on. And as soon as I did, I opened up all the windows, and I cleared everything out, and I thought I was okay until the next day. It was August 3rd of 2017. I was photographing a wedding up in the mountains, and I had to go over a pass at 13,000 feet.
Mhm.
And I got really sick, and I started shaking, and I got nauseated, and I couldn't breathe, and I didn't know what was happening. And I called my ex-husband, and he's like, I think you're having a panic attack. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't know what's going on. And I get out of the car up there, and it's cold, and I start having a cold allergy reaction again. And so I'm freaking out, and they get me into the venue, and I collapse, and they had to call a paramedic. So I'm 32 years old, was healthy, was that I literally, my ex-husband and I had just bought a van. We were going to move into it and
Oh,
just travel for 2 years. Like that was the plan.
yeah.
And I collapsed, and I got up that day. I finished photographing the wedding sitting, but I was like falling over. I didn't know what was happening. And I got home and I rested, and I had like almost like an instant chronic fatigue where I couldn't do anything. And then I started sitting out in the sun, and I started getting a rash, and I didn't know what was happening. And then I took a drink of tea, and I started having an anaphylactic reaction. And now not only was I allergic to the cold, I was allergic to the sun and heat.
Wow.
These are real allergies.
Yeah.
They're very rare. But I had both of them. And I couldn't eat anything, and I couldn't drink anything. Had this nausea to the point that I would take a sip of water and I'd be sick for 3 or 4 hours. And so I got so weak I couldn't get out of bed. And the doctor that I had been working with, after weeks of trying to figure out what was wrong, said, I'm sorry, but this is your life, and you're gonna have to accept it. At the age of 32. There
Yeah.
was nothing he could find. And I laid in bed for about a month, and all I could do was meditate, because if I did anything else, I'd freak out. My wedding photography business, like, I had friends that were photographers that took all of my clients, but it crashed and burned. 10 years of building it, and it was very successful, and it was just gone. My ex-husband is an ex for a reason. He is still a friend of mine, but he was not there. He would go climbing, he would leave me there. I had no support system, so I was alone. And I couldn't, literally, every time I'd eat, I'd have an allergic reaction. I was just terrified I was going to die. And it was really probably the lowest point of my life, and also the most inspirational, because I realized that prior to getting my the heat allergy, which was actually diagnosed, I had thought the only thing worse than having a cold allergy at this point would also be allergic to the heat. And I said, hey, what's going on in my head? Can I actually make physical things happen? Like, not magic, but like, what can we do? What can our thoughts do?
Right.
And so I decided that day that I was going to get better. I didn't care what everybody else did. I didn't care what the doctor said. And I called a bunch of functional medicine doctors and a bunch of mindfulness-based therapists. And I decided that I was not going to pick them based on their stats, but I was just going to go based on my intuition. And I found an amazing functional doctor and a mindfulness-based therapist who is still a friend to this day. She is amazing. And I started working with them. And about 2 weeks after starting working with the functional doctor, he let me know, we did a bunch of tests. One, that I had developed what's called dysautonomia. POTS is a common one that a lot of people know about. Are you familiar with POTS?
It sounds like a familiar acronym, but I don't know exactly the details.
Postural orthostatic, I can't remember. Essentially, when you stand up, your blood pressure plummets and people will pass out. So dysautonomia is the inability for your nervous system to essentially maintain itself. Your heart rate, your digestion, your blood pressure, your body temperature. My body wasn't able to do that. And in fact, if we took 2 different pulse oxes and put them on different fingers, they read differently because my hands were getting different messages.
Oh my gosh.
And that reading was different than what you would get if you listened to my heart. My blood pressure would plummet. If I went from laying down to sitting up, my heart rate would go up roughly 100 beats a minute. And I was an athlete a month before with like a resting heart rate of like 50. So he let me know I had dysautonomia, and that at least gave me an understanding of what was happening. And then he also let me know that even though a lot of my numbers were good, that I was coming back as reactive to all but 6 foods. And we thought maybe my IgG levels were just high and I was reacting to everything, but we did extra tests and that wasn't the case. I literally was reacting to all those foods. And then he let me know that I had celiac disease and that I'd likely had it my entire life and didn't know. And though I didn't really eat wheat, my ex-husband did, and it was in the house and we shared stuff. And so I was constantly getting that. So by removing, like actually addressing that, and I don't really take the Western approach of you can't have wheat and everything else is good. I have cross reactors. That's why I was reacting to corn all that time. That's why I couldn't eat oats. And I also couldn't have dairy and that. So I spent the next 6 months 3 months eating 6 foods while my gut healed. And I took supplements that were very specific to what my nutritional deficiencies were. I took a really good probiotic. I took digestive enzymes, things like that. But very specific to what the plan that my functional doctor put together. But he didn't want me to just address that. He wanted me to also address the mindfulness-based thing. So I had been an entrepreneur. I had been through a ton of stress. I was always go, go, go. I meditated for like 2 minutes every day and I called that good.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really that. So like stress management, like he introduced a plan with that, as did my mindfulness-based therapist, and a lot of journaling and a lot of figuring out why I felt the constant need to always be striving to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
which goes way deeper.
Oh, we have a lot in common, I'll tell you that. But keep telling us more. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, I mean, we had all of that. So we looked at the stress management. We looked at my sleep. I always slept really well through all of that. Like I never really had insomnia, but I would occasionally get these like really manic, like week long things where I'm like, I'm going to launch a new business. And I'd like launch the whole thing in a week, which is great. But then I'd be like, I need to sleep.
Right.
So we really worked on better sleep habits, getting out first thing in the morning, getting my son, like helping to maintain all that. Because we also did what's called a Dutch test, and we saw that my prolactin levels were super, super high, and that my estrogen levels were high, and my cortisol was being converted into cortisone, which means I had been stressed out so long that my body had adapted. And that was just my normal like baseline. I'm like, I'm not stressed, but I was, and I just
Right.
didn't see it. So we really worked on that and slowing it down. Um, Kept eating, healthy, things like that. And those were the basic things. But within 2 months from when I started seeing them, so 3 months after, I was actually able to start going to restorative yoga and to climb occasionally. I was able to start hiking short amounts. I started out at like 1 day a week and then every few days, until I got back up to the point where I was working out every day again. And I had about 25 or 30 foods, which seemed huge from 6. And my therapist just kept working with me on like, well, where do we go from here? How do we move forward? How can we make you not a victim, but a survivor through this? And, and how can we give you the tools to ensure this doesn't happen again? So in 2018, in the spring of that, I kind of picked up all my pieces. And as I put it, I divorced my life. I left my ex husband. I started building a new career. I moved out and was on my own for the first time in my entire life and not reliant on somebody else. And I was just like, I'm going to make it happen. And there were some really dark days in there. There really were.
Yeah.
But it gave me the strength and the courage to know that I didn't need somebody to take care of me, and I didn't need that I wasn't restricted to these health conditions, these labels. I just kept moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so that summer, I actually was like, I'm going to go and get certified in functional nutrition. I want to help people, and I did. And then I started working with people, and I decided that that was the worst idea ever.
Oh my God.
I couldn't, I didn't have the patience for like I don't want to give up dairy. Like, I don't want to give up wine. And I'm like, I didn't have wine for 2 years and it's my baby.
Yeah.
But I just didn't have the patience because I was like, I ate 6 foods for 6 months.
Yeah. It's like,
I was,
this.
and I'm not saying you have to do that, but like dairy, like there are so many dairy alternatives out there. It's practically like not giving up dairy. And I just didn't have the patience anymore. And so I decided the one thing that I always loved doing was building businesses and then building websites for them. And so that's what made me happy, which is kind of how I got here. But essentially, I just kept moving forward and kept really focusing on the positives and what could make me better. And even today, I still eat very healthy, but now I have like 6 foods I can't eat.
Mm-hmm.
Like gluten, oats. I could eat dairy until I got pregnant, and then it was all over. But I was told even through all of that my hormones were so messed up that I probably would never be able to have a baby. And my daughter was actually conceived with 2 types of birth control.
Wow.
So healing with functional medicine actually made me that fertile, which is amazing. And I do not regret that at all. She is a gift, but it wasn't the optimal time. But I mean, she's amazing. But I went from 3 years ago last week to not being able to get out of bed and being scared for my life to having a thriving web development and brand strategy business, having a beautiful 10-month-old girl, having a supportive partner. We just bought a house, and life has just been amazing.
Oh my
So,
gosh. First of
little rambling in there, but
all,
like,
no, not at all. Your story is exactly why I created this podcast, because I want people to know that from, your story, my story, anyone that comes on here, know that you can be that sick, have countless diagnoses, not be able to get out of bed, all those things happen to them, and they can still find a way to heal by being their advocate and just saying, look, I'm not going to suffer anymore. I'm going to look for these solutions and power through and, completely change, my life. Because oh my gosh, as I was listening to your story, like, it just reminded me of like my own, like how I started out. And I was just like, yep, I know exactly what that's like, only eating 6 things. Or because I had my histamine stuff was completely off as well. And I just, oh my gosh, like that, your story is so inspiring. And I thought I had it bad, but just the fact that you were allergic to temperature. See, that I've never heard of in my life. I was allergic to so one of my allergies was my environment. So I don't know about now, but back then, what was making me so sick, a huge part of it was I couldn't live in desert environments. Like the Southwest region, no go for me. Like I can't, because of it has to do with like the type of plants that are in the desert and just like the sand and just like all this type of stuff. And so I'm just thinking like, wow, I could relate on so many levels of just feeling like what you said was so powerful, like feeling like you were a prisoner in your own body. That really is exactly what that feels like when you feel like, okay, I'm so young, but why can't I just eat like this? Why do I have to, live a very strict outlined life where I can only do so many things? You can even go camping with ease. Like you had to plan so much around that. And oh my gosh, in my own life, I know, like, I was just like, man, like, this is like the reason why sharing your story is so important, because I'm sure, for those 7 years that you were trying to heal, had you known someone or, heard another person's story that was like yours, you would have known like, okay, at least I know this isn't forever and I'm not stuck here. And it's funny because we kind of healed around the same time. 2017, 2018 timeframe was when my life completely flipped too. And so I was just kind of like, it's like we were on similar like journeys, but obviously in different places and different things were going on. And it's so crazy like how, you were going through so many things, like huge stressful situations. And the part that you mentioned on your baseline was this stress, like you had a certain level of stress. That's literally me too. Like I'm because I've been so stressed like most of my life, I don't know anything else kind of thing. You're just kind of like, well, this is just what I've always known. It's fine. But I remember, yeah, go for it.
I'm like, I didn't think anything of it until my best friend said, Rayna, you do more in a day than most people do in a week. And I'm like,
Yep.
It's productive.
Yep.
But I have to stop myself now from going back to those habits. And I have to force myself to take days off because I'm just like, that's just my personality.
Yes. You're type A, huh?
In some ways, yes. But I'm also very much a hippie and I'm very like easygoing. And
yeah. But when it comes to your work, you're super type A.
I mean, yeah, and because what I do, like, it affects other people.
Yep.
So I have to be meticulous. I want it to be perfect for them.
Right.
Yeah.
No, we're very alike. Just kind of like I can resonate with a lot with what you said. But I am just, I'm blown away right now. Like, it's just like, as soon as I thought we were hitting a point, I'm like, oh my God, it got worse. Like, what in the world?
Yeah.
Like, and you went through for 7 years. My journey was 5, but still, in that, I mean, thank God, we're better now and we can talk about it. But when you're going through that, you really do feel like there is no hope. Like when doctors are telling you, like, this is just your life and this is what you just have to get used to, nothing is more depressing than feeling like, okay, so now I literally can't do anything. I can't eat anything. I can't go anywhere. I can't even dress appropriately with the weather. I'm just kind of like it just feels like everything is so extra. Like you're just like, why can't I just live? So I just, oh my gosh. And I mean, now you have a child, so you're just like, thank goodness I'm really healed now, because can you imagine like going through all of that and you have a baby at home? Like, there's no way.
No, and I always thought that there was just no way because I couldn't take care of myself.
Right, right.
You know, I actually went back and saw the first the first Western medicine doctor who was practicing functional medicine after I'd healed. And he was mad.
So
He
what?
was actually upset that I went to another doctor, even though he couldn't heal me. And when I told him what was wrong, he said he didn't believe it. He would have caught it if that was the case. And he stormed out of the room.
Really?
And
Like,
so I do really encourage people, even if they have amazing doctors, like I loved him, I thought he was great, but like even if you have amazing doctors, like definitely talk to like a holistic practitioner because they're trying to figure out the why, not just treat the symptoms. And
exactly.
that was the biggest thing. Like celiac disease is an autoimmune disease. I'm lucky that I didn't develop a ton of other autoimmune diseases on top of that.
Right.
And I can't even count the number of people I know that like have similar symptoms, not to the severity I had,
Mm-hmm.
but similar. And they're just like, oh, my doctor says it's nothing, or my doctor says it's fine, or, you know, and I'm just like, you're great now, but you're 28. And when you're 40, like, where are you going to be?
Right. All the medications they're going to put you on and all the unnecessary hospital trips, and like nothing is worse than going through that frustration of that circle you're running in, trying to find answers and you're not getting anything, and you're just kind of like, there has to be a way. Like I know like you were there too when you're just like, there's no way I'm just like gonna accept this and move on. For a while you do. For a while you're like, okay, okay. But then after some time has passed, you're like, no, I'm sure there's a solution. I'm just not finding yet. And it truly just takes time. And honestly, I know holistic medicine is like obviously amazing, but back then it wasn't as easy to find. Like I
Mm-mm.
remember it was, now it's a lot more normal. Like you can actually just look it up and it's there. But I remember in the time frame that you and I were both really sick, there was not much resources. You're kind of just stuck. You just feel stuck and you're frustrated and sick.
Yeah, I had no idea it even existed until a couple years ago. And now, I mean, I just can't even like even especially in times of like COVID where people have all of these lasting symptoms and I'm like, you need to address this holistically, like
Right.
because that's how you're going to heal from it, like the nervous system issues and things like that. Otherwise you do like I look at somebody like my mom who she's on so many different medications that all interfere with one another that she can't actually really do a holistic approach
Mm,
because they're interfering so much with her body that
uh-huh.
there's no like going back at her point.
Oh my
Do you know what I mean? Like if she pulls one thing out to try to heal, like it could be life threatening for her. And so
God.
that's kind of why I wanted to be a functional practitioner was to help people before they get to that point. But now I I use those skills to help friends and family members. So I'm so grateful I have them. I'm so glad I got that certification. But I also just really, you know, I want to see people. I feel like it's also a spiritual, emotional thing that needs to heal. Like I feel like it's linked there. I really
Absolutely.
do.
No, it's totally true. And I'm just, gosh, like my heart goes out to you after hearing that. I truly am just like, whoa, like and it's crazy because even like with me, I remember like the very stressful situations that kind of threw me overboard when it came with anxiety. Like I'll tell you like one snippet of it was when I was really going through it. I mean, I already had like a high functioning anxiety thing before I became a mom. I became a mom, my anxiety skyrocketed. It was just like a whole nother thing. And I didn't slow down work wise because I'm a very multi passionate person, just like you. We do a lot in a day than most people do in a week, a month. Like people just look at
Mhm.
us like, how do you have the time? Like how do you have the energy? And you're just like, I don't know. There's some things I just got to do. And I remember when my son was he was barely 6 months old. And my ex-husband, who's my husband at the time, my ex-husband broken his leg. My baby was not even one. I was in the middle of launching things. I had just relocated from the East Coast, and my father in law had passed away 3 days before my son was born. So we're like dealing with grief, we're dealing with change, we're dealing with now this injury, and I was the only one able to do everything. So imagine that type of anxiety, constant day in and day out. And my son was, of course you're trying to get used to the baby schedule. So you're just like, so that's where finally I had to, when I was seeing a functional medicine doctor, that's what, that whole situation made me pivot, because I'm like, nope, enough of this. Like, there has to be a better way. And that's when I got the extensive testing and everything like you did. And then you finally got answers. So honestly, from what it sounds like from your journey and mine, is like, it takes some pretty significant events to happen for you to be like, all right, enough. And I need to find, a better solution or something that's actually going to help me. Because nothing is worse when someone's just telling you it's in your head. I've heard that so many times. I was like, so you.
I joke that it was my body's way of saying, hey, you don't listen to subtle. Boom, sit down, shut up, do
Right.
something. Something needs to change.
Right.
And I mean, that is really how I realized, like, I'm not happy. Like, I haven't been happy. What's really going on? What changes am I going to make? And it was kind of just, yeah, the universe just was done. They're like, all right, we've tried to tell you like 50 different ways. You didn't listen.
Yeah. Yeah. So seriously, like, I had to get even more sick than I already was, because just like for you, like, you were, seemed better, but you were living such a restricted life. Same here. I was better because I was controlling my allergies and this, but that's not how, that shouldn't be your new normal. You know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't have to live like such in a box. And yeah, it creates its own other stress. And I had this thing where I was like, well, great. Like, if I have all these allergies, is my baby going to have the same allergies? Like, I was stressing out major. And I'm sure you probably felt that way too. You're just like, did I pass along, anything? And I don't know the answer to that, as far as like, can you pass, your especially for me, I didn't develop allergies until I was an adult. I was healthy, fine, I had nothing wrong. So it's like, is it even possible to even pass that on to them if you weren't always this way? I don't know. Do you know the answer to that
question I have all the time? And because I do wonder, like, if I had celiac as a child, because I, as a child, did have a lot of stomach aches and headaches, but they never looked into that. And I ate wheat my entire life, and that was just a staple. But I do, like, I am actually, she's right now really into those foods at 10 months. And whenever she's trying a new food that I have an allergy to, my partner actually has to do it. I can't, because I'm worried that she's going to pick up on my energy of like, I'm so nervous that I pass that on. And it isn't even just, it's a little bit of that anxiety, like coming back, but it's also like, it's kind of like having PTSD.
True.
Like, I was working in my freezer today and my fingers started getting red and hurting. And I'm like, am I having a reaction again? And then I'm like, no, I'm handling a bunch of frozen stuff and this is normal.
Yeah.
But like, sometimes you have to check in on that. And then like, just, I remind myself, that's where my mindfulness practice really comes in, and say like, no, like, you healed and you did the work and it's okay. But when it comes to my daughter, like, anything hurting her, like, I'm a total mama bear, as I'm sure you are. And so we haven't actually like introduced avocados yet, because it's one of the foods that I miss so much, but one of the ones that I've had a more severe reaction to. And so my partner's like, but I want to give her avocados, and I know it's healthy, but I just can't yet.
Yeah.
It's just too fresh.
Yeah. And you'll get there in time. Because I mean, it reminds me of when I was introducing oats to my son, right? This is before my holistic journey, before anything, right? And I had one of my allergies. Well, I was allergic to basically everything except for five, 6 things. When he had his first allergic reaction, he never had an allergic reaction to anything other than that one time. And he had like eczema on his chest. And I was like, see, I knew it. I passed something on. Like, I had major mom guilt, and I was like, darn it, why did I have that? And so we were able to adjust it. And to this day, I don't even really know if it was really the oats or, like you said, like that nervousness, the anxiety of, and it caused, who knows. But till this day, since then, he hasn't had any allergic reaction to anything else, and he's been great. So I'm like, thank goodness. But
that's good to hear.
Yeah, I gotta say, I have to give it to you. Like, your story is so inspiring, and thank God, when you know that something needs to get done, when you need to be your own advocate, you did it. And now you're here and you're doing so much better and you're healthier and happier. And that's amazing, because nothing feels more limiting than, being in, feeling like a prisoner in your body because of illnesses. It's just, no one should have to live that way, especially at our age. It's just ridiculous.
It makes you wonder why that's happening
Right.
to people that are young and healthy. It really does, because it's not. I know dozens of people now because they've heard my story. I was very public about it and shared it. And a lot of people have messaged me and came to me over the years because of it. And I freely give my information because of that, not as a doctor or a practitioner, but just as somebody who's been there.
Yeah. Someone who wants to help. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Being on the other side of it, I'm grateful.
Yes. No.
And that is, when you're in it, you can't see that. And I know that.
Mm-hmm.
But being on the other side of it, it let me really get to know who I was, what I needed. And really just, it was a clean slate for me to start over. And that in itself is really a gift.
No, I 150% agree with you. And that's why I think it's so important to, yes, like really do share our stories, and to anyone that wants to listen, because we can give them that hope that it is going to be okay. No matter how long it takes, we're all on our own journey, and there's always light at the end, and you will heal. You just have to stay on it. Fight for your, to be your own advocate. Don't let doctors just tell you something and you just take that advice and don't do anything else. I can't stress that enough to people. And yeah, I could rave about holistic stuff all day because we know how much it's helped. Yeah, but oh my gosh, I just loved connecting with you today and hearing your story. It really has not only reminded me of my own, but really just saying, look, yep, like there's always solutions out there. But please tell our listeners where they can find you, learn from you, connect with you, all the things.
Well, I am trying to avoid social media these days just because of everything going on. But I do still get on Instagram most days. If you want to follow my personal journey, you can do that at @lifeofrayna on Instagram. And my business work is up as well at Firefly Web Studio, which is great. So that's probably the best way, other than in your Facebook group.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, all of her links will be in the show notes description box, and of course, and she'll be in our group. So if you want to connect with Rayna and say, hey, I'm so happy that you're feeling better, because honestly, that's what we need to do. We need to lift each other up and know that you may not have had the best support system when you were going through it. Neither have I. It was really kind of roller coaster like, but I know people out there all over the world that can understand and who were there as well. We can all support each other, even virtually. So thank you again so much for coming onto the show today. I love talking to you and learning from you. And yes, I think you're amazing. And I'm just so, so happy that you're feeling better.
Thank you. It was nice meeting you today as well.
For sure. All right, guys, we'll catch you guys next time.